Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Waste Knights 2nd Edition. Waste Knights 2nd Edition is brought to you by Galactic Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games range anywhere from 90 to 180 minutes. Waste Knights is set in the post-apocalyptic world in the Australian outback. And you're going to be going on adventures here. Again, this is a very story-driven game. You take on the role as a heroic Waste Knight. And as that Waste Knight, you're going to be running into mutants, feral beasts. You're going to be running into cybernetic organisms and constructs. And all in an effort to stay alive and further the story. However, your most lethal enemy out there might just be other humans. So the game is very much scenario based, and throughout the game you're going to be tapping into the Survivor's Guide and the Book of Tales. These different books are going to be a huge part of what drives the story for your characters, all in an effort to make this a living, breathing world and evolving based on your decisions in the game. Alright, so this is very much an overview because really, I don't want to give away too much of the story. I mean, they do give you some basic scenario things in this book to try for the prototype, but I don't want to give too much away. However, I will say that right out of the gate, in scenario 1, when you go set this up, and that's another interesting thing, the setup is going to be different for every scenario that you roll through. So in this very beginning scenario that they provided with the prototype, you read through the story and right away you have a couple choices to be made, and it's going to dictate where you take the adventure. So the setup can be greatly varied, like I said. And for instance, for the super basic starting adventure, you're going to be looking for parts. And there's certain things here that you're going to set up on the board, and it's going to be different for every scenario you choose. And again, based on those branching paths from previous adventures is going to dictate how you set up each game. Not only are some of the adventures just strictly objective-based, but a lot of them are also time-based. And you have a time track at the bottom of the board to keep track of where you're at. Now, obviously, there's some basic things about the game that we can talk about that will encompass pretty much all the adventures. So every player has a character, the Waste Knight, and these character cards are very straightforward. It outlines your skills, your health, your different experience tracks, and of course your different types of weapons and armor and a place to put those on your character. Also, each player receives a vehicle, and there's a bit of a draft here, how you get your characters and your vehicles. If you were the last person to get a character, then you're going to be the first person to get a vehicle and so forth. But these vehicles are varied and do a lot of different things and help you move across this map. Now, they have different gas tank abilities, which help you move further in certain cases and allow you to do special things. It talks about the different type of chassis it has and how much damage it can take and what it takes to repair, things of that nature. So these are really key to allow you to move across the map, because as you move across the map, there's different terrain types which are going to cost you different movement. Now, each of your Waste Knights or the players are going to receive some starting gear as well for your character. You're going to get 2 weapon items and 1 armor type. So those are just from the starting gear though. The rest of the starting gear then, after everyone picks, is going to be shuffled back into the main gear deck. And then everyone also receives some starting resources. You get 2 fuel, you get 2 ammo, and you get 2 meds. And of course, each Waste Knight has its own miniature, along with a set of tokens and upgrade cards and so forth. But really, these are kind of the core things you're going to get with each character, and it's going to lead you through all the different adventures. Now, even though each of these scenarios are greatly varied, you still have some basic actions that your character can tap into, and you can perform 2 of these on your turn. You have movement, you have city actions, you have camping, which is valuable if you need to heal up and things. You have exploration, and you have plot points that you can deal with. Also, you can simply just pass on your turn. And there's this handy reference guide to help you through each of these actions. And one of the big ones, one of the main things you're going to be doing on your turn is movement. And you're going to be gearing up, basically planning for what you're going to be heading out to do. You get all your stuff ready, and then you're going to pick your path along the board. And movement is going to vary because you're going to be moving through different types of terrain. The handy reference guide, once again, outlines what it costs to move through the different terrain types. And as you're moving across the board, there are icons to take note of, because as you move into areas, you're going to have to deal with biohazards. You're going to have to be dealing with radiation and threat. When you run into a threat icon, you're going to draw a threat token from the bag, and these tokens are going to resolve at the end of your movement. Then at the end of your movement, you'll pull a wasteland card based on the terrain type that you landed on. And these can do all kinds of different things. First, it could lead to an enemy you go into combat. Or it could be an event, and then you got to do some skill checks against your character's abilities or whatever the card calls for. Or it could be an encounter card, which then is going to lead you back to the story, a footnote that the player to your right is going to read the footnote and further the story. And really, that's the goal in this game, to ever move the story forward. Also, as you traveled across the map, if you did pick up any of those threat tokens along the way in the bag of terrible, these threat tokens are going to do all kinds of different things, and they are resolved at the same time as the wasteland cards are. So these tokens can do things like causing damage to your vehicles, giving you radiation poison or biohazard issues, or giving your enemies benefit. So these threat tokens are something to be avoided if possible. Now, like any good adventure game, the camp action is there for you to do things like healing, which is crucial, especially if you've been radiated and things of that nature. And you can do repairs, not only just to your vehicle, but you can repair your equipment. Yes, your equipment will become damaged throughout the game. And then you have effects. There are certain cards that only come into play when you're camping, and you'll activate those cards then. Or you can upgrade your character. However, it's not required to do that at this point. You don't have to camp to upgrade, because at the end of your player's turn, you will upgrade automatically as long as you have the XP necessary to do so. And all of these things under the camping action can be performed. Not just one, but you can do all of them. And then you have the explore action. So when you do this, you're going to draw an explore card. And based on the terrain that your vehicle or you are on currently will dictate what you get. Sometimes it's really good stuff. Sometimes it's not so good. But really, this is about collecting items and trying to get better things or resources for your character. Also, if you choose to spend an additional gas can, then you can draw a second exploration card and get even more stuff. And then you can perform a city action as long as you're in a city, and there's 6 spots on the board for this to take place. So when you're in a city, you can do things like visit the quack, which is the doctor, right? And you can get some super healing, and if you have any injury cards against you, you can potentially discard one of those. Also, you can visit the garage, which repairs your vehicle, and if you have any malfunctioning cards against your vehicle, you can discard one of those. And visiting a workshop repairs your items, much like repairing your vehicle at the garage. So there's definitely reasons to go to these cities. There's also something pretty cool. You can visit the stalls, and you can barter and get better equipment, and there's a whole process around that that's pretty neat in the game. And then you have the plot action, and you can only do this if there are plot tokens or challenge tokens, something there to indicate that the story is going to be advanced, and you can take advantage of those. Again, it's going to be very different based on the scenario and story you're playing. So there's lots going on in this game, way more than what we've covered here. This was just to give you a brief glimpse, an overview of what some of the things to expect. And there's a whole thing around combat. Even though it seems somewhat involved, combat is pretty streamlined and works really well. And you know, I did play through this a bit, and at the risk of being too spoilery, there's giant robots to deal with, and well, that didn't go so well for me. But the game, the stories throughout this game is really the thing that drives it. And really, that's what your whole goal is. Even if it's just like the first mission was to get parts, really your goal is to push that story forward and see what happens next. And those branching storylines really add a lot to the game. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, I love story-driven adventures, and this has it in spades. There's so much going on here. Not only is there huge thematic stories, but it has that choose-your-own-adventure feel as well, because of the branching paths, and it also has that sandbox feel that you get to play in this post-apocalyptic world. But ultimately, folks, if this looks like a game that would be of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.